Hi guys, I'm Billy S, and if you're watching this, you're about to join me as I dive into the various games in my backlog throughout 2023. While editing my Minecraft Raven series last year, my mind was constantly thinking about, well, what next? And I decided to truly tackle my real-world backlog. All of the games on my shelf or in subscription services like Game Pass are all eligible as long as I want to play them. Inspired by the video A Misguided Guide to Finishing Your Gaming Backlog by Daryl Talks Games, I really liked his method of calculating his backlog, and I'm taking a stab at it myself. As this is the first video of my 2023 Billy's Backlog series, I want to quickly define that while I will be treating these videos as reviews, I won't be going terribly in-depth or making 3-hour-long videos, otherwise I will never make a dent in this backlog. So let's get started with Unravel, a 2016 physics-based puzzle platformer by Coldwood Interactive, which I played through PC Game Pass in conjunction with EA Play. Now this series will be split into 3 sections. 1. Why is this game in my backlog? 2. General game information. And 3. My overall personal thoughts. So, let's start with my backlog question. Unravel has been in my backlog for quite some time for a very simple reason. Yarny, the main character, is just so absolutely adorable. What, you wanted a deeper reason? Sometimes all it takes for me to want to play a game is a cute main character, man, and I will not be judged for that. Unravel's gameplay loop is pretty straightforward. Following an opening cutscene where we see an old woman head upstairs, she drops a ball of red yarn, which becomes Yarny. Yarny's goal is to explore the house and find photographs of times gone by, memories of the family who lived there, which act as level selects, with the goal of collecting little red badges at the end of each level for the photo album on the table in the hub, which will then unlock photos in said album and text reflecting on those memories. Levels unlock in a linear fashion. When you pick a photo, you'll be flashed into a puzzle platforming level set in the gorgeous Swedish countryside, and you'll have to use your yarn abilities to pull, swing, climb, and rappel through the various environments. From a berry-filled marshland of mosquitoes, to seaside docks, a gorgeous winter wonderland, and so much more. The inspiration for each level comes from the landscapes of Sweden where the developers live, and each locale is lovingly crafted from the ground up. If there's one thing you can say about this game just from a glance, and this is factual, it is absolutely stunning. My footage does not do this game justice. It's just a clean, visually impressive series of set pieces that also happen to have a game formed around them. From the way the waves look by the ocean to the way snow falls from these trees, or the beauty of an old wooden shack with water running through it. Every moment feels like a photograph or a painting, and everything is at its best when you're flowing from one set piece to the next, taking in the world and enjoying the fluidity of some of Yarny's movement options. The music, composed by Frida Johansson and Henrik Oja, is a perfect accompaniment to the experience, giving general gameplay a very natural and pleasant folk vibe. Though for some of the darker levels in tone, because there are a couple, there's a lot of string instruments and more melancholic tracks that feel very striking in all of the right ways. Overall, fantastic job from the soundtrack. Most of my playthrough, I found myself lost in the journey, traversing all the unique levels and completing various puzzles to progress. The game starts off pretty simple, as the opening level teaches you all about your various abilities. As Yarny is made of yarn, all of his abilities revolve around string. For example, in every level there are points in the world that Yarny can interact with, which he does so by tying knots to create taut ropes. Sometimes this is to create a jumping platform you can launch from to reach higher areas, sometimes this is to push an item up a slope that you otherwise couldn't do. Yarny also has a lasso which can latch onto any nearby points, and this is your main movement mechanic in the game aside from walking. You'll need to lasso, climb, and swing through the environment to make any form of progress, and for the most part, the game doesn't get more complicated than that except for the various puzzle locations in each level, but we will get into that later. Momentum can be a bit rough when swinging, that's something I noticed, especially when you're trying to build up speed to make a tricky jump, and it can be quite frustrating when you are practically halted altogether because you accidentally brushed against something in the scenery. It doesn't feel consistent as a mechanic, and it often feels like you're fighting with the game to get Yarny the height he needs to make some of the expected jumps. The other main feature of Yarny's kit is his ability to rappel and climb. You can always climb back up the trail of yarn that follows you. On PC, you do this by holding down the S button and then inputting an upwards direction, and this is a vital piece of Yarny's kit as the game progresses. The issue is that this mechanic doesn't see a terrible amount of use in the first 2 levels, so by the time you get to some puzzles that need this feature to progress, you might forget you can even tighten the slack on your yarn. Anytime I got genuinely stuck on a puzzle after looking up the solution, it was always some form of climbing up your own yarn or rappelling and swinging off a cliff in a way I didn't realize was possible. Sometimes I'd solve puzzles and not even realize I had the tools to solve them. Like in this house here, for example. I spent 15 minutes trying to figure out how to get up to the upper right platform of this house, not realizing all I needed to do was use the yarn point at the top of the house to rappel and swing across. This game doesn't feature any form of hint system, so it can be brutal when you hit a brick wall and you just don't understand what to do, because depending on what points in the world you tie your yarn to, certain physics can or cannot happen. It was a bit overwhelming for me at first, until I realized most of the puzzles don't require you to go too far out of your way when placing and tying your yarn. The toughest part of the game was completing a puzzle, only to realize I was out of yarn before reaching the next checkpoint, as yes, you have a limited amount of yarn before Yarny cannot move any further, signified by these knots in the wool line. At each checkpoint, you can replenish your yarn back to full, so the challenge is not only solving each puzzle, but ensuring you can make it to the next checkpoint with enough line as well. There are also 5 secret buttons you can find throughout each level, which, as far as I know, are just cosmetic collectibles. Once you collect them, they appear outside the level photo in the main hub, and I quickly decided I wasn't going for 100% completion in this game after getting stumped on a couple of the puzzles. So I just collected the buttons I happened to find, and I kept moving, but for people who want replay value, those buttons are there. And that's honestly pretty much the entire gameplay in a nutshell, so let's get personal, shall we? I was mainly invested in finishing this game for the story and for Yarny. Sadly, the gameplay didn't quite hook me in the way I was hoping it would. Perhaps it's because I was expecting some more fluidity to the movement, but what I got was a fairly uncompromising moveset and puzzles that sometimes felt either a little bit too difficult or too easy to comprehend, even if the solutions were ultimately simple in the hard cases. This puzzle at the start of the Berry Mire level, for example, was genuine hell. You have to fill this lake with enough water to float to the other side with a log, and then remove the log from the lake on the far side so you can get up a steep wall just off screen. But getting the log to move forwards was confusing. I spent a good 20 minutes tying knots into the log, the lever, the environment, in various combinations. You can see it on screen. And it's at this point when I realized these types of games are just very hit or miss for me, and that's just because I don't have the highest tolerance when it comes to puzzle solving. There's a reason why I was intrigued to play Unravel because of Yarny, and not because of the gameplay. The lack of guidance can be exciting for some people, but for me, I do enjoy having a little helping hand here and there if I get too stuck, and as this game doesn't provide that, I can safely say that if I had not been recording for a video, I probably would have dropped the game after needing to look up my 3rd or 4th puzzle solution. But thank goodness I stuck with it, because by the time I got to the final portion of the story, I was once again fully engaged with the events, emotions, and themes presented. There's this moment in the second to last level where you have to pull a lantern up a hill in the middle of a blizzard, and it keeps buffeting you back down. So when you solve the puzzle and you're able to pull the lantern to the top, it hit me pretty hard. Or the brief final level of the game, where you get unlimited swing points to lasso from. The movement felt so good here, it's what I wished more of the game was. Though I will give the game props for making a variety of puzzles that actually fit into the level design with real-world objects. That is really cool. Now, there is one passage in the game that really resonated with me in terms of the story, and I'd like to share it with you guys. All things inevitably come to an end. Someday the machine stops running. We can share paths for a while, but ultimately we all have our own separate destinations. Getting real for a second, I have a big fear of death. But more than death itself, I have a fear of missing out on time spent with those I love, especially my partner because we're currently long distance and working to move in together this year. So stories like this really hit me hard because it makes me reflect on my own situation and it makes me think, I don't want to waste any more time. From a pure narrative perspective, this game is bloody brilliant, and the presentation, the attention to detail, and Yarny himself with all of his little emotions and animations sells the entire narrative. But I wish the gameplay was a bit more interesting. The controls are clunky, and the game could use more fluidity with Yarny's movement to make the character a little more satisfying to control. And for all I know, all of my issues might have been solved in the sequel, but Unravel 2 will have to wait for now. Given it's potentially a co-op game, might need to get the boyfriend on call to help me there. Finishing this game, I came in with a final time of 6.5 hours, which is roughly the usual length for this genre, and I think if the adventure had gone on for any longer, I would have felt genuine fatigue. For anyone on the fence about Unravel, remember I played it through PC Game Pass, so if you're subscribed on there, you already own this game. Hop in, try a level or two, and let me know what you think down below. As for me, yeah, I recommend this game. The presentation, stunning. The visuals, gorgina. Yarny, precious. The gameplay though is hit or miss, but when it hits, it hits. And given how much the team clearly cared about telling the story and sharing their country, they do deserve more people playing this game. And as a side note, being real, once again, be sure to let the people you care about in your life know how much you care, because you never know when you won't get another chance. Thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. All my important links are on screen now, and you can find them in the description via my link tree. Check out some of my previous content down below, and a massive shout out to my patrons. You guys are the ones keeping this channel alive, and you are awesome. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.